Welcome, everybody, to this wonderful webinar on Gaia with Phil Goldsmith. I have known Phil for a very long time, probably over 30 years, and I know his dedication and love for anything to do with nature and the earth. So we're really looking forward to seeing him speak today. So, Phil, lovely to see you, my love. And lots of memories we have between us. But I suppose the first question I'll pose to you is, how did you first come into this work? How did you first feel this wonderful connection you've got to earth energies?
It's a good question. It could be a long answer, couldn't it, that? I think I'd have to talk for a minute about growing up. And we didn't have a lot of money, but we had relatives, family who lived in good places. I had my grandparents lived down near Exmoor in the coast, and the great aunt and family lived up in Yorkshire near the Pennines.
Lovely.
Near Ilkley, well, in fact, on Ilkley Moor, which is a
Mhm.
famous place up there. So our
Yeah.
holidays were spent walking mainly with my father and brother, and I loved that, and got a sense of there was favourite places we had, and you got a sense of the feel of the land. Certain places felt good, some places felt a little creepy, some places felt cold, and other places felt warm. And I didn't analyze any of that. There was places we liked to be and other places we just walk through and on to the next place. I always felt that connection with just being outside and on the land. And
Yeah.
I was happy. That's where I was happy and felt at one, at peace. And my father was a countryman at heart, so he'd grown up in the country. He had a certain amount of, he had quite a good understanding, and we talk about what we saw, or we talk about anything really, they were kind of the best times, if you like. And also where we lived was in the grounds of a Georgian house, which had been split into three flats, and then two more semi-detached had been built in the garden of the house. And we had 7 families there, and you had to have, I think, multiple children to be given one of these houses. So we had quite a gang of kids, some older and some younger, and everyone had a plot of garden, and there was a wild area where the trees planted in Georgian times had matured, and
Oh,
then a
wow.
certain amount of wildness had come up amongst it. So we had this overgrown undergrowth and trees, a wild area that we shared. So we'd spend a lot of time building dens and climbing trees. And there was a sort of hierarchy about the tree climbing. The older ones could climb the large trees, and then as you grew up, you might be helped up a tree, or then you'd learn to climb a slightly bigger tree. And each one of those was like a little rite of passage, and it's all part of growing up. And what with cycling and swimming, they were simpler times in the
Yeah.
50s and 60s. But
So it's no surprise you became a tree surgeon, Phil.
not not really. Although that wasn't a course that occurred to me or even knew about at that point. Obviously, it took a while. Um, I think then moving on, college times was important because I had time to read. And late 60s, early 70s, there was a lot of new ideas about a lot of exciting things happening and a lot of good books coming out which could catch the imagination. And things I remember very much is there's one called The View Over Atlantis by John Michel. And in that, I came across the concept of ley lines and energy points in the earth, as well as several other fascinating things, numerology and sacred measurement, and lots of stuff that piqued my interest. And then there was books. There was one called The Secret Life of Plants, all
Yeah.
about how plants responded to people's emotions or thoughts, and could even respond over long distances when their owners were away. This was fascinating. And another one, Supernature, Lyle Watson, Supernature. Lots
Yeah.
of lots of wonderful things happening in the earth, mysterious and wonderful things, and that was exciting. And one of the best ones was Findhorn, reading about Findhorn, which is somewhere that perhaps it's a name that most people know a little bit about. But the
Mm.
origins of it, one of the three who originated it, one of the ladies, I think Dorothy, her name was, she would communicate with the diva or the archetype of each vegetable or plant. And as they planted it, and they got wonderful results growing these vegetables in plants in soil which was very, very poor.
Mm.
And this actually absolutely confounded all the experts and the gardeners and horticulturalists, some of whom just simply blanked it and refused to believe it, which was quite amusing, I thought. But that sense of interacting with nature spirits to create greater growth, I thought had wonderful potential for for feeding the world in the times to come. Um, I guess as yet we've it's happening in small ways. There are a lot of people doing small patches of work with growing with nature. I think biodynamics is something that's quite linked with that. The Rudolf Steiner. Anyhow, the book that got me going was by a woman called Elizabeth H. or Heish,
Oh,
and
I remember. Yep.
she there was a book called Initiation, and she had this tremendous regression experience, a really vivid and life. Well, she wrote it as if it was really happening, and she
Mm.
went back to being the daughter of a pharaoh. And the bit that caught me was um, early Egyptian was very spiritual culture, and being the daughter of a pharaoh, and what she wanted more than anything was to be in the temple and learn about the mysteries. And so she goes to the temple, and she's interviewed by the high priest there in the courtyard, and asks if she can join the temple. And then he says, okay, if there's a tree in the courtyard, and he says, if you can sit with that tree, if you can become that tree, you can enter the temple. So of course she does, and there's a few sweat and tears, but she gets there in the end and finds a way to be as one with the tree, or maybe become the tree. I'm not sure how, but and then she joins the temple, and the story goes on. It's quite an involved story. It's quite a feat of regression, but she didn't do it deliberately. I think it just happened to her.
Mm.
Anyhow, I thought, well, that sounds good. So I was off into the parks of Sheffield, sitting under trees, and seeing what I could get with with a bit of mixed success to begin with. And then one day we could walk out of Sheffield through the parks and over the moors and into the Derbyshire moors, and that was wonderful. And over the top and down the other side, I was walking down through there was one of these rocky streams that run off the mountains, as it were, run off the hills, and it was wooded, and a beautiful spot, spot I'd been to many times since. And I'd sat there to had a drink out of the stream, which you could probably still risk in those days, and sat under a tree and was just all the thoughts. At that time, my mind was all kinds of questions and thoughts rolling around. Always something going on, and I was sat under this tree and working through stuff in my mind, and suddenly I was finding my way through and finding answers and finding clarity and things, and this went on several things and several lines of thought I went on, and went further than I'd ever done before, and find this clarity, and I thought, oh, this is good, and after and after a while I thought, hang on a minute, I don't think I'm that smart. What's happening? And I looked up above where I was sat into the tree there, and it's got this really strong sense that the tree was connected with me, and was helping me with my thinking and my thoughts and my energy and everything. And so I just sat there and enjoyed that for a while, and began talking back to the tree and kind of asking it, is this right? Is that right? Is what I'm feeling true? Is this happening? And sort of set up a conversation, and then went off on my way, walked on down through the woods, down the valley, and feeling rather excited by this. And anyway, that was the beginning of it. And I've sort of every chance since then, I would, stop and find a quiet spot with a tree and see what I could tune into. Or if I was passing a tree, I'd always touch it. And I found that sitting with the trees would calm me, and I could sort of earth myself. I was very much then absorbing a lot. And so it was nice to go and sit in a park or under a tree and just let it all drain out of me again.
Mm.
Um, and that's been a habit of mine ever since. I'll always
Can
go
I
out.
ask, can I ask you what the tree was? What type of tree it was? Your
I know.
first
I mean,
experience.
I'm
Doesn't
pretty,
matter.
I'm pretty sure it was beach.
Oh, lovely.
I'm pretty sure it was beach. Um, yeah, I mean, it's a long time ago, but I've been thinking about that. And when I think of it, it feels like a beach. And I've always had a good connection with that tree. It's a lovely tree, and it's got a lovely vibe, and
Beautiful.
it's lovely to climb too. It's very smooth and open, and
Yeah.
it's nice as a tree surgeon to work on those. Um, anyway, okay, so I skip forward. After college, I was did a few jobs, and then realized that if I had to work, if I had to work for the next 40 years, so 50 years or whatever, 50 years, I think it's been, um, I'd have to do something that I liked. I'd have to be, and what I really liked was being outdoors and with
Yeah.
the trees. So firstly, I looked into forestry, and with a naive impression of sort of whistling through the woods with my knapsack on my back, and then, looking after the trees, and then, very naively, and then I realized it's about a crop. It's a business. It's about a crop. It's how many cubic feet of timber per acre we can produce. I thought, oh no, that's they're my friends. I can't be doing all that. And and then a kindly forester who I was talking to, he said, well, perhaps you need arboriculture, which is, the propagation and care of trees and planting and care, and which led me through to the tree surgery, which is one of the most common aspects of arboriculture.
Yeah.
And so, I explored that and found a job with a local guy who was very knowledgeable, a friend. He's still a friend, and he's a consultant now, and he's a very knowledgeable guy. He taught me a lot, and I got on a government training scheme, which sponsored me to go back to college and actually do another year of college. And yeah, and then I became a tree surgeon.
So
Um,
how did that sort of take you to the earth energies work that you're now so much involved with, Phil?
well, I'd remembered, I'd always remembered this connection with the trees, so I tried to bring that into my work wherever possible. And wherever we'd worked, I'd always kind of tune in either to the tree we were working on, or to the garden, or to the, each garden has, I think they call it the genus loci or something like that. But every garden has a kind of guiding spirit to it. Um, and every tree has a presence. So I'd always tune into one or both of those kind of um, consciousnesses, and try and work with that, try and do my work with that in mind, and with that level of kind of awareness and sensitivity. And I found that um, asking permission seemed to make a lot of difference. Just kind of letting them know what you were doing and why, and asking permission, made a lot of difference. I mean, I would say something like, forgive what we do, grant us attunement that we may do it well, protection and bring us safely through. And then I'd ask for peace on this place and the beings of this place, and then ask for healing and sealing of the energies, and then might do some healing energy work or not, and then I'd feel like I could begin, and what we were going to do, which was quite often, using a large using a large chainsaw.
Yeah.
It didn't seem so. It didn't have such a dramatic effect. I didn't feel like I was hurting or harming if I'd asked permission and explained what we were going to do. And nature appears to, it likes that connection. It wants us to connect with her, and it feels better when we do. The whole process goes smoother, and I don't feel so bad about what I'm doing, which is quite often hacking big chunks of tree off off a lovely creature, and yeah, and that's gone on, and I've that's become. It was always a habit and a practice, but it became clearer and more involved and more engaged as time went on. Yeah, I mean, I've got a few. There's a few little. I've got a few little stories I might tell to kind of give examples of how things went.
Yeah.
So I've got one. One job I got asked to quote for was in a local village, and it was a newish estate, but they had a large horse chestnut tree, and it was nearish the house, not that near. You didn't have. I tried to persuade them. Could I just make it a bit smaller and reshape it? And did they need to do that? Could we, quite often it becomes obvious that somebody's mind is made up, and then I have the choice: do I do the job and kind of lay the tree down with respect and give it the last rites, or do I not and let somebody else do it who might not do it with as much thought or whatever? So I need to try and know that that person's mind is made up. I will offer them alternatives, and if they're obviously not playing, then I might then quote for the work. Well, I wasn't going to enjoy taking this tree down. It was quite a nice tree. So what I do is I quote quite a large price, and I think, well, if they want it, fine. But hopefully I won't get it, and then I've done my bit. but of course I get the job anyway, and I've got to do it. And I arrive at the job, and I'm dreading it a bit because I love the trees, and I've got to take this beautiful tree down. And I mean, it's part of being professional, but it still hurts. It still doesn't feel good. So I'm tuning in at the base of the tree as I normally would, just talking and asking permission and apologizing for what we have to do, and offering its energy. Usually I'd say something like, offer your life force and energy back to the earth to grow again, and ask that your spirit find peace in oneness, or something along those lines. And as I was doing that and tuning in, I had this clear sense of the tree talking to me, and it's saying, "Hey, it's okay. It's all right. Don't worry. I'm okay. I understand what's happening. And I'm good. I've had a good life. It's fine. I'll move on. It'll be okay." And so I thought, he said, "Oh, let's just enjoy this last day together." So I did, as much as you can when you're dismantling several tons of tree, But if I pause, each time I paused in the tree, at the top, I stopped, I climbed into the top to tie in, and it said, look at this view. This is my view. This is just me. I've had this all to myself for the last 50, 60, 70 years or whatever it was. It's been lovely here. It's, I'm not sad. It's been good, And each time I paused for a breather, there would be this sense of, "Hey, how you doing? We're okay. It's all okay." And anyway, so we it carried on. We took the tree down and dismantled it and took it all away. But that stayed with me. That affected me quite strongly, and I looked at things slightly differently, and that was wonderful.
I wonder then, Phil, there's an awful lot, obviously, of environmental talk and so on, and worrying about the earth and earth energies. I wonder how you feel about that. Um, you know, our planet Earth. We know there's transformation happening
Mm.
above us, above the planet. I wonder if you've got any insight as to how the planet feels or what you feel about it.
Big one, isn't it, Julie?
Well, yes.
So,
You don't need to answer it if you don't like. It's just, well, can I just say something from my perspective?
yeah, yeah,
I know, and because we do a lot of meditation and stuff together over the years,
yeah,
and very often we talk about healing the earth and so forth.
yeah.
And I think it's interesting how people visualize that. When you say the word earth, people think about the earth where you grow your plants. But
Mm.
actually, the earth itself, the planet, is volcanic right in the core of it. And
Yeah.
it's vast and it's huge, and the energy is absolutely mammoth.
Mm.
Um, so I wonder, just out of curiosity, when you do the meditation and you think about, looking after the planet, how you visualize that? I'm just curious. Hope you don't mind me asking.
No, not at all. No, it's a good question, and it's a question that's a kind of it's an ongoing and developing question because um, there was an interesting meditation I came across um, where, and it was like you wake up in the morning and suddenly there's a huge volcano outside your window, but it's sleeping, and that's quite an interesting thought. Here, it's quite flat here, so that massive Mount Fuji or something like that turns up on your doorstep. And but the volcano's sleeping, and then but around the volcano are lots of mini volcanoes which are just erupting gently, and that represents Mother Earth's restraint because there's changes happening, and yet she is doing her best to allow those changes to happen with less, less cataclysmic than it could be, and there is a certain amount of restraint in that the changes, are, even though they might seem large, are actually happening in a very controlled and restrained manner. And
Mm.
and also the implication was that actually all these little volcanoes, some of those volcanoes, that's us, and we can all release some of that tension from the earth through in our own beings and through our own life. And if we all help release these tensions, release these earth energies that need to come out, need to come up and change and move, then we could ameliorate somehow the radical changes that need to happen.
Yeah.
And that image kind of struck me, and the question was, where in your body can you feel that volcano is
Ah.
working through you, which I
Mm.
thought was interesting. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure. I could feel it in a few places.
Oh, right.
Sometimes, well, not all the time, not all at once, but I thought maybe in the throat chakra,
Really?
help me speak, help me kind of
Wow.
help me help me talk about the earth, help me talk about Gaia. That would be quite good,
It's
but yeah,
interesting, isn't it? Because when you work with the chakras and you talk about the base center,
mm,
and I often finish a meditation by saying, the deep roots into the earth.
mm,
And I personally have the image of that volcanic energy,
mm,
the base center chakra is red, and that's what I feel. And
yeah,
I've no doubt that you could bring that through into other areas. And it's interesting for you that it's the throat, but it's, you know, I think people underestimate how incredibly vast, how incredibly strong the earth itself is as an energy, as a consciousness.
Mm.
I'm thinking, you know, somebody asked me once, what was the picture you think changed the world? And I immediately knew what the picture had changed the world. And it was in the 60s when we had the first picture of our planet Earth, the blue planet. I'm
Right.
sure that that
Yeah.
changed people's perception
Yeah.
of the earth. I was quite young. I think it was about 10, 9 or 10, when that picture was on all the Sunday supplements that week. And I think that had an incredible effect on people to see the earth as this incredible ball of energy in space, and the vastness and the feeling of that consciousness. I mean, it's just amazing. And magic to be on it. And I sort of slightly going off here, but we've entitled this webinar Gaia, and
Mm.
you've talked about the earth as she, as
Mm.
feminine.
Mm.
Do you want to say anything about that, Phil?
Well, I think that might be kind of the human kind of simplistic way of looking at things. Quite often, Gaia is associated with the goddess energy,
Uh-huh.
um, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure because sometimes we talk about the goddess and Pan being a male, the god Pan being a male balance to that. And I quite like that idea, but I'm not. I mean, is Gaia the balance of both of those things, or is Gaia
Mm,
feminine, or is Gaia the whole? You know, is it the male and female aspect of the earth? And then also people talk about Sophia, which is an aspect of and I'm not sure, you know, this is something I've heard come across recently, and maybe it's like, is Sophia like the higher, like we have ourselves and we have a higher self, it's connected to spirit. Is Sophia that aspect of Gaia, which is the spiritual being that she is in essence, even though that spirit is yet to be, as we have yet to embody our full spiritual potential, and Gaia has also maybe yet to embody her full spiritual potential, and maybe that is what is happening through the human race. As we transform, she will transform with us.
I'm
So
sure.
I'm not sure exactly how all these aspects work together. I
Mm,
feel I don't worry about it too much in
no.
that um, talking to the trees, talking to nature, it feels as if consciousness is not. We have this kind of sense that we're, you know, an isolated unit almost, or that's our cultural kind of conditioning. I mean, we know we're actually all connected. We know we're telepathic. We know, you know, we're connected on soul level and heart level and all this. But, you know, our general upbringing has been this as a unit of consciousness, individual and separate. And nature doesn't seem to be that way inclined. It seems as, you know, each consciousness, each focus of consciousness can like really meld into the next, or you know, many levels of consciousness can be in the same. You know, a tree can have a tree spirit or a kind of angelic thing. There's also maybe the diva, the archetype of that species is kind of present there, but there's also maybe the small fairy-like beings who are actually working on building the leaves and building the, and as well as the elemental beings in the roots, all with the interchange of chemicals, and all this consciousness doesn't seem to be. It all seems to be interwoven. You know, it's not that same separateness. So when I think, well, is Gaia feminine or masculine, or is it goddess and Pan, or I don't. I'm quite happy with all of that, but you know, I'm also happy with the sense that maybe, you know, it's probably a lot more complex than I see it. You know, and that's
Mm.
okay. You know, and I'm all right with that.
I think because of course you went with my husband Rupert uh, to Colombia and met with the Kogi Indians, and one
Yeah,
thing that I
yeah.
thought was very interesting about that is because they had no connection with society, they sort of removed themselves
Yeah.
for hundreds of years. And they talked about Mother Earth, Father God, didn't they? And Rupert came back and told me that. And I
Yeah.
remember, isn't that interesting? Another culture still talks about the Earth as Mother Earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I found that quite extraordinary. And the Sophia thing, well, Sophia, of course, is the word for wisdom. So I don't
Yeah.
know quite how that fits in, but yes.
No, I don't either. Yeah.
So
Well,
would you like,
The Kogi, I mean, they they were they were wonderful in that you felt as if they'd just grown out of the earth. Their connection with the earth was so natural
yes,
and so all inclusive. I
yes,
mean, they felt absolutely, there was the trees there was the Kogi there, and there wasn't really that much,
no,
they were that real, that
yeah,
immediate, and that present that it was that alone, just being in their presence was a real huge education
yeah,
and inspiration,
yeah.
And I often go back in my meditations, go back there
Do
and kind
you?
of link in again. Yes,
Oh, lovely.
it, it was a wonderful experience. Yeah, and
Well, I didn't go, obviously, but seeing pictures and what you guys talked to me about it, and I absolutely concur with you. There is no doubt in my mind that those people at that time, hopefully still,
yeah,
just so connected with every stone, with every pebble, with even living things. I mean, they ate meat, but they treated their animals as pets, they loved them.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I thought that was so amazing. And would that we could do that, you know, somehow. But it
yeah.
sounds to me as though in some way you are doing that, Phil, with your connection.
Well, yeah, I try. I try to see that with the trees and such that it's there's like there's a frontier. There's like a I see a kind of frontier. There's nature in the wild, and then there's man's in his civilization, and then somewhere on the edges, the nature is in the gardens and in the parks, and it's like the advanced kind of force of nature is just creeping in and just showing its face to us, and and as we let it into our gardens, we are kind of so there's an interface going on. And I think that the dialogue between man and nature has been, apart from wonderful people like the Kogi and the Bushman and the Aboriginal,
Mm,
that conversation has been mostly lost. And
mm.
I love to just talk. I mean, if I'm out, I'm talking. I'm just talking to the fields or the trees or a hill or a river,
Wonderful.
and it feels like that's enjoyed. There's a response to that, and I think nature wants us to be in
Yeah.
communication, so
But,
that we
you
can
know,
share.
you mentioned the thing about separation, and the thing is, I always think we human beings are nature. We are part of this world. We are every bit as part of it as the animals and the trees and that. And I think the idea of separation is not such a good one. We are nature. We are part of nature. And the way you're talking about your connectedness with it and other societies, I think that's so important for us to connect in that way. Um, I'm sort of slightly mindful of time. We've got a bit of time left, but I wonder, Phil, if you would like to say anything about how you see things going for the earth, or any advice or comfort for us, because there's a lot of fear around at the moment.
Yes. Um, well, I think we've always said we create our own reality, um, and I think that becomes ever more important now. And I think we have we have free will and we have intent, and we can allow into our reality what we choose. We can't we can't change everyone else's reality necessarily. We can't just with a sweep of our hand make the world better and take out the bits we don't like. But we can create a reality for ourselves, um, that feels comfortable for us. And yes, those the fears that are around. It's important for those who can to earth those fears and not pass them on. It's a very contagious thing, fear. But I think we can, I think we can create a reality for ourselves which is loving, which is connected, and the fear will affect us, but there are ways to then earth that fear and release it, and put it in the light. And yeah, I
Perhaps you would
find
like, sorry, perhaps you would like to say something for people, how you, is there any sort of practical way to earth these fears, any visualization, meditation, or thought that you could help people with? Because a lot of people are thinking about this now, so I think it'd be helpful.
yeah. Well, for certain, it's great to touch the earth, to touch a tree, to sit in the garden, any of that. And more people are getting out into going
Yeah,
for walks and getting into the
yeah,
parks, and that's wonderful to see. Um, I also think, thinking in terms of that Gaia, that we are Gaia, we are connected, we are part of the earth. You know, we breathe the earth, we breathe Gaia's air, and we eat her food, and our bodies is made. Every molecule is made of Gaia, basically. And we can allow, I mean, there's a meditation with, if we can come out of our thinking and into our bodies, we can allow those fears are just feelings in the body. And if we can still ourselves enough and just breathe into that, let them be, and not let our try and not let our minds chew on them, so to speak. let, let let them be there, and let them be. What does it do? What does fear do to my body? Which parts of my body is it affecting? I mean,
yeah.
it's making my mind spin around. But if I can just drop beneath that spinning mind, and how does it feel in the body? If we can just sit with that feeling, um, I'm not saying it's easy, but if we can just sit with that feeling, eventually it just dissolves, because it's just another illusion that is, triggered our system into a response. Um, and that, I think that combined with linking with nature, I think linking with nature is what we're actually doing. Then is actually linking with nature through our own being, through our own body. So it's the same thing as hugging a tree. We're just hugging ourselves, so to speak. And I think it can be done, and we can learn how to, earth fear, and not be driven by fear, and we can learn how to create a reality that we choose, and we can choose to not have certain aspects of um, what goes on in the world in our reality, and it will keep knocking on the door, and it will keep trying to get in, but yeah, I think we can do that.
I love that. I love what you just said about through our own body. And I think that's a very profound way of actually acknowledging where our fears sit, and as you say, sit quietly. And the other thing that you said I find so inspiring is that we do have choice.
Yeah,
And I think people seem to sometimes forget that. We can choose what we believe, we can choose what serves us and what is good, and working
absolutely,
with the
absolutely.
inner light is the most important thing.
Yeah.
That's absolutely lovely. I do hope, Phil, by the way, and I was going to say this at the end, I'll say it now. I do hope that in the very near future you would like to do a perhaps a short course with people. I think it would be absolutely wonderful. And I think
Mhm.
it's needed at this time, that sort of grounded feeling of earthing, for want of a better word, is so important. Yeah.
I
Um,
would I would like to do that, Julie. I think that
Great.
would be good.
We'll
Yeah.
sort it out, probably just after Easter or something. We'll put it out. Is there anything you'd like to say to us? Any advice or whatever today?
Um, just saying that that Gaia is real, Mother Earth is real, and we can all accept her, let her in. You know, we can all link to her. She's happy to receive us. You know, and we can let her in, and we can be at one with the earth. Maybe not in every moment of every day, but even just one moment per day would make an immense difference.
Yeah.
And to do that, all we have to do is ask. All we have to do is just say the words,
Yeah.
and it's there. It's not. I mean, it can be difficult because of our resistance to things, but it's not difficult in essence. It's just like so many things in life. It's just a case of asking.
Yeah. Intent is everything,
In,
as we
intent intent is everything. Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I just have images in my head as you're talking, Phil, of some experience. I'm not going to go into it. It's not relevant to go into it. But one thing, when I feel my consciousness is out into the universe,
Hmm.
and I feel almost like a sound of a vibratory sound of the planets and our
Mm.
planet. And I realize how immense it's so immense, it's so powerful. And I've sort of, as you've been talking, I've really sort of got goosebumps bumps and thinking about that powerful vibrating energy in the universe of which we are part of. It's
Yeah,
incredible, absolutely incredible. Mm.
I think just I would ask people to suggest and ask people to just talk to, you know, risk ridicule and talk to a tree, or talk to the earth itself, or talk to that, but just open up a dialogue, because, you know, and all you have to do is talk as if they can hear you, because they can. and
Oh, that's lovely.
and yeah, and all we have to conquer is our own inhibition, and fear is holds us back. But if we, you know, find a quiet place with no people around, and then just talk or sing. Go in the woods and sing. That's a great thing. I know it's they really, I mean, I always wait till no one's around. You know, but they actually, you know, singing a happy tune in the woods, it really gets a response. You know, it's a lovely thing to do, and it's harder in the cities, isn't it? When you've got parks rather than woodland, it's hard for some people to get out into nature. But, you know, just quietly talk to a tree. You can do it in your mind. You don't have to, you know. But it's easier these days. You can pretend to be talking on your phone, and you can just go and talk. You can,
I love those words, open up a dialogue. And I
yeah.
can just share one thing with you, and this is definitely to do with the tree. I was in the middle of Sydney, Australia, and I was just wandering, mooching around, and suddenly I felt behind me this really strong energy. And I turned around and thought, where is this coming from? And in this middle of the built up, the middle of Sydney, there
Mm,
was this massive, massive eucalyptus tree.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I looked and I felt this eucalyptus tree, and I thought, you are much more powerful than all
Mm,
the skyscrapers around you. It
yeah.
was like holding the energy. I do hope it's still there. It was magnificent, and that energy was just lovely. So open up a dialogue, I think, is a wonderful way to close the close this session. And just for everybody's information, I will definitely pin Phil down with some dates, and hopefully there'll be a course. If you are watching this recording, please don't hesitate to pass it on to anybody you feel would be interested in. And the same applies with anything that Insight and Intuition are doing. Phil was very much part of the beginning of Insight and Intuition. And I will say this, I hope it's not going to embarrass you, Phil, but Phil and his wife used to travel every single week down from Bath to London, and has very, very much become an integral part of Insight and Intuition, to which we are very grateful. Very grateful.
It was a joy for us. It was a joy for us.
Too. Bless you, and thank you for coming in.